with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time, one of the multitude said to Jesus, "Teacher, bid my brother divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, you make me a judge and divider over you?" And he said to them, "Take heed and beware of all covetousness, for a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, the land of a rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought to himself, "What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops." And he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store up all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this day your soul is required of you, and the things that you have prepared, whose will they be?' So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God." The Gospel of the Lord. I love the words of this Gospel where Jesus says to the man who's asking Jesus to do him a favor, Jesus refuses. He says, "I'm not here to be a judge." You remember on Sunday, I was talking about our discerning, and it's not an easy thing to do, what is our divine name? In other words, what possible name do we hear God using to call us? Not our earthly names, but our divine names. Because those divine names will give us an inclination, as for Jesus, as to what our vocation is in life. The Father called Jesus my beloved Son. And he instructed people to listen to him. So Jesus was quite clear that his vocation was to talk. Not to be a judge, not even to be a healer. He did healing. But his primary role, clear in Jesus' mind, was to teach. He was the teacher. He was the prophet. And that's what Jesus is doing in this gospel. Teaching us how to look at earthly possessions. And it's the same in our first reading, telling us that everything comes from God and we must discern clearly. How often are we burdened by the requests of other people? It's very easy for me as a priest. It must be far more difficult for you as parents when your children are asking for things. And there are many things that you are giving your children: education, food, love, wisdom, guidance. Unfortunately, you can't give them a smack on the bum anymore, which was very helpful when I was growing up. But there are times when we, as you parents, know that you've got to say no. Because the more you say yes to your children, the more they're going to ask for. A child that has never heard a parent say no will be a very selfish child, self-centered, a child that does not know how to help other people. And in your old age, when you are in need of your children, they will give you nothing. They will take everything. And whose fault? Not the child, primarily. but the one who never learned to say no. So when we know our divine vocation, then we know when we need to say yes and when we need to say no. The same in an abusive relationship. We have got to learn to say no. In the work that I do with drug addicts and rehab, to train the families to say no is one of the hardest things to do. How can you get to the point where a parent says to a drug-addicted child, no, you cannot come home, because when you do, you verbally abuse us, you don't obey the rules of the house, and you steal. So therefore, I'm going to go to the police and get an interdict against you. If you choose to live on the street, that is your choice. And you can just imagine how difficult that is for a parent. In my limited experience, when family and friends can get to that point of saying no, the perpetrator, the suffering person, has the best opportunity of changing their lives. Up until that point, we are what we call enablers. Jesus says, I'm not going to be the judge of the inheritance. I want you to have an attitude towards earthly possessions. So he takes one thing and he doesn't discard it completely. He uses it as a lesson. And he says this wonderful lesson of why are you being so attached to your earthly things? I mean, wouldn't it have been wonderful for this rich man in the parable if he had said, I've got such a wonderful harvest, I wonder how many poor people I can help. I wonder how much I can sell and give my laborers a bonus. I wonder, instead of building bigger barns, I can build homes for the poor. Because that would be a better way of using the gifts that we are given. Interesting, in this gospel, he talks about the soul, not the heart, not the body, not the mind. I will pull down my barns, etc., and I'll say to my soul, in other words, the part within me that I am aware is where God dwells. I will talk to that divinity within me and say, you've got lots of things now. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. That's exactly what we are not asked to do. Whatever gifts we have, material and spiritual, we are not called to use them to hoard things for ourselves, but to give them where they are needed. And our divine name will guide us. Because our divine name will not be mother, father, priest, teacher, lawyer, doctor. No, our divine name will be something like it was for Jesus. Beloved son, listen, because you're a teacher. Beloved daughter, you are a compassionate person. Show compassion. My beloved son, you have been educated to understand people's behavior. Show people how to behave. Look at the Beatitudes. Those who can console, those who can show mercy. All those Beatitudes give us an inclination of what our divine names might be. So this week, let us continue the theme of Sunday, understanding, trying to hear what God calls us, what divine name he has given us, and how are we going to use that in order to say no to people so we can really live our vocation, not their vocation, our vocation. Amen.